Hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr, where we talk about how to take the mystery out of running an independent record label. And today's a special episode because I want to talk about that feeling of burning out, which I know a lot of us have experienced, or maybe you're experiencing it right now. As I record this episode, it's towards the end of the year. And if you listen to these episodes or watch these episodes in sequence, then you're following along and it's at the end of the year. And this is often a time where people feel a little bit burnt out. I know that running a record label, and I'm biased, and we're all biased towards this. I know that running a record label is often a thankless job. And at this time of year, there's these emails that say, where's my order? Why is shipping taking so long? And artists are asking for something or anticipating something coming next, which is all within their right. But oftentimes for small labels, it all falls onto one individual, one person, that being you or me. And so I know this time of year is usually, some people, it's a great time of year because it's a time after they've had a big year-end sale, or maybe they're done with their releases and they can relax, and maybe your albums are appearing on top 100 lists. Congratulations if so. But I know for some of us, in fact, for me, it's a kind of a sentimental time of year because it's when I started the podcast, because in November of 2017, I was feeling a little bit down. And it's actually where the idea of Other Record Labels came from, is because it felt like all these other record labels were doing so well. And here I was kind of treading water and not really growing or even surviving. And so that's when I started to reach out to other record labels, and when the podcast and the community formed. So I'm kind of nostalgic to this time of year, but it is still a great normal time where people feel burnt out. And so what I want to do is I want to go through this list. And by the way, I'm putting together something right now. It's a resource for you that you might find helpful. It's not, fully announced or released at the time of recording this, but go to otherrecordlabels.com/productivity, where I'm putting together something there that you might find helpful. So go to otherrecordlabels.com/productivity to get a peek at that. What we're trying to do in this episode is we're trying to avoid burning out. We're trying to protect our mental health, and to protect ourselves, and to protect our label. The reason we're going to go through this right now, and I've got some practical things that are going to help you, I think, but the reason we're going through this right now is, for a lot of us, this is a passion project. A lot of us, has come out of our love of music, our love of art and creative people, and trying to support them. And so this is the time where, and by the way, if you're listening to this episode or checking out this episode outside of when it was, released, I think it applies, because people feel these little micro moments of burning out at any given time of the year, or these macro moments of burning out at the end of the year or at the start of the year. I don't know what that is for you. But it's important. This is why we're going to tackle it, is that for a lot of us, it's a passion project. And I always found whenever I engaged or I experienced conflict with an artist or with a customer, or any sort of internal conflict, I always was super extra annoyed, because this was supposed to be a fun thing. This was supposed to be a passion project, running a record label. And so when it becomes stressful, it's almost extra stressful. And so we're going to talk about 3 areas that will help us avoid burning out. Are you ready? Number 1 is to practice saying no. Sit out on releasing a new album. Try to be more honest and transparent with your artist. Saying no is one of the most powerful tools that you can have in your tool belt, not just as a record label owner, but as an entrepreneur and as an individual. Learning how to say no is something that, for me, it's still happening, but I think I've gotten a lot better at it. In fact, I probably should now start to practice saying yes a little bit more. I've gotten too good at saying no, maybe. But I think it's important that if you are kind of in the earlier days, you always are saying yes to things, because you never know what that one thing is going to be that's going to maybe blow up your release or blow up your artist, or be really successful for your label. And so you're always saying yes to everything. And so that level of discernment comes with time, for you to be able to discern, this is something I've seen before and it looks really enticing and tempting, but it actually just takes a lot of my time and money and is stressful. And so I'm not going to do that. And so it takes time for us to get to a place, but I would encourage you now to start to practice to say no, and be honest and upfront with your artist right away and say, listen, I'm going to start saying no to things. And that might be a new release. That might be a special release. It might be an event, but I'm trying to protect myself and the label from burning out. And so I'm going to start to say no to a couple of things. Give them a heads up so they don't take it personally. Also, we talked about this in an episode recently. I don't know if it's been released yet, but with a record label. But I know there's that feeling of FOMO, of fear of missing out, and often that happens when we discover a great artist and we want to work on their release, or an artist says, "Hey, I have a special EP I want to do." You know that you can't handle it with your own personal bandwidth, but you have that fear of missing out, that what if I don't work on this project? What if this project becomes big without me? That's tough. So I understand those things. And so try to get a little bit better at ignoring that FOMO, and maybe actually plan to say no once a month. Maybe intentionally remove something from your record label. Maybe actually say, okay, you know what? We're going to, once a week or once a month, I literally have to pull something out and say no to something that I normally would have said yes to. So that's number one. One way that we can avoid burnout is by practicing saying no and saying no more often. Number two, and we talked about this one last year, we have a whole episode on this, is plan your year all at once. And now, this isn't always possible, and of course, it's really loose. You don't have to stick with it entirely. But what I like to do is in December, and I think of December as kind of a downtime. Now, there's not a lot happening, and it gives me a good chance to focus on the new year. But you could also do it in July and August, because that's also a downtime, and September is also like a new year for a lot of people. Wherever you are in the year as you're listening to this, you can plan out the next 12 months or the next 4 quarters or however you view it. For me, I like to take some time and to, I think I don't plan right down to the week, but I think it's really important to take your quarters and say, okay, this is the one big initiative we're going to have this quarter being January, February, March, April, May, June, et cetera. And saying, okay, in the winter quarter, this is the release that we're putting all our attention to. In the spring quarter, this is the campaign or the fundraiser, or maybe it's just a huge Black Friday sale that you're gonna focus on for 3 months, and that becomes your big initiative. So what I like to do is I like to kind of sit back in advance and say, here are the 4 big things or 6 big things that we're going to work on. Or maybe you have the bandwidth to do 12 huge things, and we're going to plan out each month and say, this month of January, we're going to focus on promoting our back catalog as much as possible. And in the month of February, we've got a brand new artist that we're going to promote and everything. And so one of the reasons I think doing something like this helps you avoid burnout is because it's now no longer are you stressing about what am I to do next? What do I need to do now? What's next on my plate? You have that actually literally written out on a piece of paper or on a physical calendar hung up in your office, or even just a Google spreadsheet. That's what I use. And so then mentally, you know what, this quarter we're focusing on this. I don't need to stress about this. It makes it easier to say no to things because you've already assigned a month or a quarter to a certain initiative or a certain theme or a certain campaign. So this is just something that I like to do. We have a whole episode that I did last year. You can go back and look for this. I think it's called the 12-month promotional campaign. We have an actual module in our marketing course too, where we talk about this more in depth, and we have a calendar that you can use. And so I find this to be really helpful. The third and final thing is I want to talk about going on hiatus, because this is something I know a lot of labels do. And so I want to dive into this topic about going on a hiatus. This can actually help you so much to sit back and refresh. I think going on a hiatus and actually announcing that you're going on a hiatus and officiating, I don't know. Who knows? That's a tough word, but making it official with your fans, with your audience, with your artists, with the people that you work with, and say, hey, listen, we're going to take a little bit of time off. And so we won't be posting on social media. We won't be working on any new projects, and just making it official. I think it's so much better than just ghosting your audience and periodically posting on social media and just trying to keep things going. If you actually state, hey, we're on hiatus for the month of the year of 2022, or for the entire month of September, or for the remainder of the year, and you can say something like, we're going to refresh and to relax and to hopefully come back stronger. I think that's so much better than just saying, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so burnt out, is to actually make it official and say that we're going on hiatus. I think you'll get the respect and the admiration from your peers and from your audience. And they'll, instead of bugging you and say, hey, what's going on? They know that you're taking a break. The beautiful thing about hiatuses, hiatuses. So like cacti, maybe? Lots of words to be learned in this episode, that's for sure. I think it'll refresh you. And if you do come back from your hiatus, which I hope you do, if you do come back, it provides you this opportunity, this big relaunch, which ends up becoming a promotional initiative in itself, is relaunching your career and your record label. And not only will you feel refreshed, but your audience and your artists will feel refreshed too. And don't worry, your audience will always be there. There is this huge pressure that this society today and social media puts on us to always be posting, always be showing up. I think that's important if you are trying to build an audience and generate revenue. But if you are needing to take a break for personal reasons, for mental health reasons, then don't stress about the fact that you're going to lose everything that you've built up over the years. Don't worry, it doesn't really work like that. And it's going to have this huge momentum and excitement when you do finally come back. I want to talk about 3 different types of going on hiatus. I can't pluralize that word, so don't make me do it. The number one is like indefinite hiatus. And that I've seen that with a lot of labels where they're saying, for our own mental health, we're going to pull back on this record label and we're just going to pause it right now. And we don't know if we'll ever be back. And sometimes they come back in a year and sometimes they come back in 2 years or in 5 years. All of a sudden we see this label again. That's totally cool. You can do that. You can also do these kind of like macro hiatus where you're saying, I'm going to take an entire year. So you announce in January or you announce in September and say, from September to September, we're going to completely disappear. We're just going to pause social media. We're going to pause all of our initiatives, and we're just going to step back. And so you can totally do that. That's a great way to do it because then I have a sabbatical that's 1 year long, and that should take a lot of pressure off of should I come back here? Should I come back now? Is to actually give yourself an endpoint and say back. I'm going to go January to January, or September to September. There's also this concept of like a micro hiatus too, where you and I did this a couple years ago. It was in the summertime and we were promoting an EP from an artist on the label. And I was on vacation with my family, and my family was all getting ready to go down to the beach. And I was sitting in this lovely vacation home, and I realized that it was like 5 weeks out from the EP release, and I needed to send these press emails out. And so my family left without me to go down to the beach, and I'm sending these press emails. I'm stressing about it while I'm on vacation. And then as I'm walking down to the beach after I've sent these emails, I started getting replies on my phone. Why I had my phone with me, I don't know. But I started getting these replies and I started getting some declines and people saying we can't cover it, or we're not interested, or we don't like it. And that was affecting me so personally. I was taking it so personally, even though it wasn't my music. It was an artist on my label. And I was like, oh man, this sucks. It totally ruined my vacation. It certainly ruined that day. And I realized right then and there, this is ridiculous. I need to stop promoting records in the summer. Not only is it just not a great time to promote records because most writers and curators and people are on vacation or their mind is somewhere else. I wanted to be doing the same. I wanted to have my mind somewhere else and to be relaxing. And so back then, that was, I think, in the summer of 2016. And I basically said, I'm not doing anything in the summer when it comes to my record label. There might be some maintenance that I do, but I'm really shutting down my record label in July and August. And I stuck with that for a couple of years. Now I do a couple things here and there, but it's still this big principle that I have. And so when we're talking about avoiding burnout, and we're talking about going on hiatus, you might want to consider going on a hiatus for the summer and just saying, our label shuts down in the summer months. Or you might say, our label shuts down from December to March, and then we come back and we're around for the spring and summer and fall. whatever that is for you, whatever is best for you in your situation, you can consider that. You don't have to have this indefinite hiatus, which we see. You don't have to even have this macro hiatus where you take an entire year off. You can actually just take a quarter off, or take a season off, or take 1 month off. That there's no rules. You can totally do that. One final bonus tip I want to give you before I let you go is there's also this concept of putting certain aspects of your label on hiatus. So you actually don't have to disappear, or your label doesn't have to shut down, but you can say, you know what, for this entire year, we're going to stop doing physical releases. Right now, the pressing delays are insane. There's always environmental concerns. Shipping costs are crazy. So for your label, you might say, listen, we can afford to do this, and we're going to just do digital releases for a year, because manufacturing and designing and with the delays and shipping puts a huge strain on you financially and mentally. And so maybe we're going to do an entire year where we just do digital releases. Or maybe for you, that's live events. You're going to completely pull out of live events. Whatever it is for you that creates burnout, because that's what we're talking about today, whatever it is for you that creates burnout at your record label, maybe that's the one thing that you can put on hiatus without having to put your entire record label on hiatus. Let's go back over these. Number one is to practice saying no. Number two is to try to plan your year all out at once, loosely, of course. And number three is to go on hiatus, whether that's just putting things in different sections of your label on hiatus, going on hiatus for just a season or a month or an entire year or indefinitely. Whatever it is that helps you, these are all ways that will help you avoid burning out, because we don't want you to burn out. We want you to keep making great music and promoting music and releasing music. But if you need to take some time, do that. I hope you found this helpful. If you're listening to this in real time at the end of the year as I record this, I think it is a relevant subject at this time of year. And look for ways that you can encourage yourself, get out with people and with your fans and with your supporters and your family and your friends and your artists, and try to step back for a little bit. Like I said, we're working on this resource you might find helpful. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/productivity. Thank you so much for being a subscriber.